Hello, my name is Dr. Saif and greetings from India. Today we will discuss about hypernatremia, which is quite prevalent in ICU. Its prevalence is about 6% to 26% in various types of ICUs across various geographical locations. And ICU acquired hypernatremia is an independent predictor of increased mortality and ICU length of stay. So in this video presentation, I will try to enumerate and discuss its causes, symptomatology, management and follow-up. So hypernatremia is defined as serum sodium of more than 145 millimole per liter. We will understand the various theoretical concepts of hypernatremia, presentation and treatment with an example. This is the case of 76-year-old man who has been hypertensive since last 10 years and on regular treatment with tablet torsemide 5 mg BD per oral, and he presented to casualty with severe obtundation. On examination, he was found to have dry mucous membranes, decreased turgor pressure of skin, fever and tachypnea. His blood pressure was 142 by 82 millimeter of mercury without any orthostatic changes. His heart rate is 100 per minute regular and the serum sodium is 168 millimole per liter. His body weight is 68 kg. So the diagnosis of this patient is the symptomatic hypernatremia with severe dehydration. From this case, our learning objectives should be to find out the cause of hypernatremia, to discuss the pathophysiology and how should we approach such case, a diagnostic workup plan and its optimal treatment. While treating it, how should we monitor, and after treatment, how are we going to follow up such a case. So these are the various discussion points. So what are the various causes of hypernatremia? The causes of hypernatremia are only divided into classically water deficit and solute gain. Solute in this case is sodium, the sodium gain. The water deficit is the most common cause of hypernatremia, in which the loss of free fluid or loss of free water is the most common cause, which can be renal or extrarenal mechanism. If it is renal, it can be osmotic diuresis, it can be due to diuretic drugs, or it could be due to diabetes insipidus. That is a condition where is hypotonic urine and polyuria happens. Then loss can also occur due to extrarenal causes like diarrhea and all, and fever, high grade fever, vomiting, burns, etc. Then other cause of water deficit, which is quite common in extremes of ages, is the impaired thirst mechanism and inability to drink water. In ICU, most of the patients are intubated or sedated. They are not able to drink the water. They don't have access to water. So they may develop hypernatremia. They are high risk at developing hypernatremia. Similarly, a patient who is at home, very elderly, has impaired third mechanism. Impaired thirst mechanism leads to less oral water intake and can predispose to hypernatremia. So impaired thirst mechanism can also occur in the pathologies of CNS depression and also due to drugs, okay, mainly sedatives. Groups at highest risk of developing less oral intake are the patients with altered mental status, the patients who are intubated and on mechanical ventilation, and extremes of ages, that is infants and elderly persons. Now we will discuss about the less common cause of hyponatremia, and that is the solute gain or sodium gain, okay, which can occur in ICU as a result of mainly iatrogenic causes. You know, the most common cause of sodium gain is iatrogenic, wherein a lot of soda bicarb has been infused, or the hyponatremia is overcorrected by hypertonic saline, or so much of salt has been taken. Okay. Now, after having completed the discussion on causes of hyponatremia, now we will look into the pathophysiology of clinical effects of hyponatremia. So what happens when there is hyponatremia? So you know, the sodium is a major determinant of osmolality of serum. Okay, so when sodium goes up, the osmolality also increases, and that increased osmolality can extract the water out of brain cells, and that causes the shrinkage of brain. That is immediate effect, but over time the cells accumulate the organic solutes, okay, and that solute, when it accumulates, it helps the cell to regain its size, and the cell shrinking, you know, goes back to the normal cellular shapes. Okay, so that is a protective mechanism to prevent the ongoing shrinking in the brain. But when you are not able to treat hyponatremia for a long time, the shrinking can happen very fast and can lead to the rupture of bridging vessels, resulting in hemorrhages. Okay, the cerebral hemorrhage, SDH, that is subdural hemorrhage, is very common in older people due to hyponatremia. So due to the effect on the brain, the most common symptoms of hyponatremia are central nervous system dysfunctions, and the presentation of hyponatremia depends on the age. Okay, if in infants the presentation is different, in older age groups the presentation is totally different. In infants, the hyponatremia presents as the high tidal volume and rate, the restlessness, the muscle weakness, lethargy, and ultimately coma. In elderly, sodium, until sodium is more than 160, the symptoms of hyponatremia usually do not manifest. However, over 160, there may be confusion, coma, seizures, thrombosis, intracranial hemorrhage. I remember one case in my oncology ICU where the patient's age was 83 years and he developed cavernous sinus thrombosis. The features of cavernous sinus thrombosis, that is the hemiplegia, unaltered consciousness and convergence, etc. And on magnetic resonance immunography, we found the thrombosis of cavernous sinus, and in that patient the sodium was 173. So we may observe one or many of these symptoms due to CNS dysfunction. Now, after having discussed the pathophysiology of clinical effects, now we should discuss how to approach such case, a diagnostic workup plan. So remember, apart from sending the urine other routine investigations, you should be able to do the urine osmolality and sodium levels. These two investigations are very, very important to approach a hyponatremia case to find out the etiology. So urine sodium can be high, normal, or low. If the urine osmolality is high, the urine is concentrated, that means that extrarenal losses are there, like vomiting, sweating, excessive sweating, okay, like evaporation from burns, and also the low sodium diarrhea, low sodium colostomy output. All those are the extrarenal mechanisms of losing water, okay, and can lead to hypernatremia, in which the urine will be very concentrated. Urine osmolality will be high, more than 300. Okay. If the urine osmolality is normal, then we should consider the renal losses. Okay. So patient may have the diuretics, or maybe on diuretic drugs, or may have glucose, high glucose level, like more than 350 milligram per deciliter, or very high urea in case of CKD. Okay, the patient may also have the salt wasting syndrome and can lose a lot of water, though the urine osmolality will be very normal. Okay, these are very few examples of losing water renally, and which the urine osmolality will be normal. Okay, now we will move on. Low urine osmolality. Okay, hypotonic urine and polyuria are the signs of diabetes insipidus, and diabetes insipidus can be central diabetes insipidus or the nephrogenic diabetes insipidus, depending upon whether ADH is secreted or the kidneys are resistant to the effect of ADH. Okay, so DI will be a prominent cause in which the urine osmolality is low and patient has hypernatremia. Okay, now we should look at the serum sodium, because that also decides the treatment. And the serum sodium, if it is more than 190, it indicates that long-term salt ingestion. Patient may be on salt capsules, okay, prescribed by your doctor for more than months together, and leading to so high sodium in the serum. If the serum sodium is less than 190 but more than 170, that usually indicate the diabetes insipidus, and we should always look for urine osmolality for its low urine osmolality and polyuria. If the serum sodium is between 150 to 170 millimole per liter, it usually indicates the dehydration. Then we should look at whether the urine osmolality is high or it's normal. Fine. So this is the approach to hypernatremia, so that you can find out the causes and treat it. Now, after finding out the cause of hypernatremia, simultaneously we should be able to treat. Okay, to treat the hypertonicity apart from underlying condition which is causing the hypernatremia. In patients with hypernatremia which has developed over a period of hours, okay, up to 48 hours, the rapid correction improves the prognosis. So we should be increasing the sodium at a rate of more than 1 millimole per liter per hour, up to 2 to 3 millimole per liter per hour can be done. Okay, but the overall correction should not be more than 12 millimole per day. That's what guidelines say. In patients with hypernatremia of longer than 48 hours or unknown duration, the maximal rate of correction should be 0.5 millimole per liter per hour to prevent the cerebral edema and convergence happening due to overcorrection. What should be fluids for the treatment? So commonly we use hypotonic fluid like D5 or half NS to correct the hypernatremia. But if patient is showing the signs of hypovolemia and circulatory compromise, 0.9% normal saline is usually suitable. But in other conditions, hypotonic fluids, as I said, will be appropriate. Okay. Now, I've come across a very good therapeutic algorithm for the treatment of hypernatremia. So first and foremost, you should be able to assess the onset from the history, whether the onset of hypernatremia was acute or chronic. If it is acute onset hypernatremia, the correction can be rapid. Okay, but maximum correction should be not beyond 12 millimole per liter per day. That you should remember. In case of chronic onset hypernatremia or hypernatremia of unknown onset, the correction should be slow, okay, not more than 0.5 millimole per liter per hour. That is the maximum correction rate, but the overall correction should not be beyond 10 millimole per liter per day. Okay, so this is regarding the onset decides the rate of correction, the rapidity of correction. Then we should be able to assess the volume status, intravascular volume, whether the patient is hypovolemic, euvolemic or hypervolemic. The volume status determine whether we should be using the diuretic or not, or whether we should be giving more isotonic fluid to maintain the volume or not. So in case of hypovolemia, we should be always resuscitating the patient with isotonic fluid like NS or RL, and once hypovolemia is corrected, then we can change the isotonic fluid or balanced salt solution to 5% dextrose or half normal saline. Okay, so that is the strategy used when patient is having hypovolemia or hypotension. In case of euvolemia, 5% dextrose is ideal fluid plus minus loop diuretic depending upon condition. If patient has hypervolemia, signs of hypervolemia like peripheral edema and all, or pulmonary edema, then we should be using loop diuretic along with 5% dextrose correction of hypernatremia. So this is a very good treatment algorithm we should be using for the cases of hypernatremia. Okay. So this is a very good Android app which I could come across on Google Play. So which can be used to estimate the fluid losses and to estimate the correction of hypernatremia, the correction rate. Now back to our case. So this is our original case, a 76-year-old man, hypertensive on tablet torsemide 5 mg BD, and he had developed the symptomatic hypernatremia and severe dehydration. So in this case, we would like to correct the hypernatremia with dextrose 5%. Okay, according to therapeutic algorithm discussed just before this slide. So we will use the Adrog-Medius formula. This is a very good formula to estimate the drop in sodium per liter of infusate. Okay, so whatever infusate we are using, the sodium and potassium value of that infusate will be here. This formula minus the actual serum sodium, the current serum sodium upon total body water plus 1. The total body water is usually calculated by multiplying the correction factor into the body weight. So in this case, the body weight is 68 kg. So we will use 34 liter of total body water, and putting all these together in this equation, we have calculated that 1 liter of D5 will decrease sodium by 4.8 millimole per liter. Okay. Now, the rate of sodium correction should be approximately 12 millimole per liter over a period of 24 hours. So that is the maximum correction rate. We will go with the slow correction, but because we don't know whether this hypernatremia is acute onset or chronic onset, so unless proven otherwise, we should be always regarding this hypernatremia as a chronic hypernatremia. So therefore, the maximum correction will be 12 millimole per liter over a period of 24 hours. So therefore, 2.5 liter of solution, that is 12 upon 4.8, will be required, okay, to correct the sodium, and adding 1.5 liter to compensate for the average obligatory water losses over a day, a total of 4 liters, that is 2.5 liter of the correction fluid, the fluid deficit, plus 1.5 liter of additional loss. So you will be giving 4 liters of fluid, that is D5, to be administered for the next 24 hours. Okay, so the calculation is 167 ml per hour should be given over 24 hours. Okay, so that is your calculation for this case. And also you should be able to stop the torsemide or change the torsemide to another antihypertensive in this case, because probably the patient is having the renal cause of hypernatremia. So you should be sending the investigation, the urine sodium, urine osmolality, serum sodium, etc. to approach this case diagnostically. Now another case. So this is a very good case, a 60-year-old man who had cardiac arrest, and following cardiac arrest CPR was started, and he received 10 ampules of sodium bicarbonate over a period of 6 hours during the resuscitation after the cardiac arrest. Okay. Now he is stuporous and is undergoing mechanical ventilation, and his blood pressure is picked up now 138/86 millimeter of mercury. However, on examination, it was noticed that he has developed lot of peripheral edema, anasarca. Currently, his serum sodium is 156 millimole per liter, and his body weight is 35 kg, and his urine output is 30 ml per hour. Okay. So how will you approach this case? So this hypernatremia probably related to resuscitation. Okay, the fluid used in this case soda bicarb. Large amount of soda bicarb has been administered, and that is why serum sodium is 156 millimole per liter. Now we will apply a Drog-Medius formula. In this case, his estimated total body water is 51 liter, 0.6 into 85. So by a Drog-Medius formula, the amount of so correction will be 3 millimole per liter with 1 liter of D5. Okay, and let's correct sodium up to 150. So in this case 156 to 150, 6 millimole per liter to be corrected, which can be corrected over 6 hours. So volume of D5 needed will be 6/3, 2 liters over 6 hours. So that will be estimated as 333 ml per hour. However, there is anasarca probably related to resuscitation, so we can use diuretics along with sodium correction. So after the treatment or while treatment is going on, you should be able to monitor such case. The formula based correction may underestimate the sodium change. The sodium level monitoring every 4 to 6 hourly. Treatment of overcorrection should be done. Strict input or output monitoring should be performed. Any ongoing losses should be always monitored and corrected for. Response to treatment should be monitored clinically, looking at the patient. And after the treatment is over, we should be following up this case with the sodium monitoring every week, proper patient counseling for proper fluid intake and output monitoring, endocrinology consult, neurology consult, and imaging to find out etiology if there is a recurrent hypernatremia and recurrent hospitalization. So thank you very much. I hope that you have understood the tenets of treatment of hypernatremia in ICU. Thank you very much.